When I was looking into the Bridge End case, the Bridge End suicides, uh, a thumbnail came up which actually had nothing to do with that. Although arguably it's somewhat connected in regards to the issues around mental health. But this strange photo came up of a girl with a guy's name on her head, Stuart, and I thought that's a bit strange. Pretty girl. Just seemed a bit strange. So I clicked on it, and it was a report by the Sun tabloid. It's got no connection to Bridgend, but anyway, it got me thinking about another issue that is worth talking about. So it turns out this is a young woman from New Zealand. She, at the time, this is 2016, she was purported to be 17. Um, and she's been nicknamed Poison Ivy. All that's known about her is she's thought to be from New Zealand, and her name's Hannah. And she operates on Twitter. But there's really not much information about her other than the fact that she seems to go to chat rooms and talk to vulnerable, socially awkward guys and gets them to basically humiliate themselves. And she actually has boasted about she bullies the weak, she enjoys making men feel worthless. She sounds like a right bundle of fun. Um, Frankly, she sounds like a despicable human being. And I hope that she is stopped if this is still ongoing because the men seem to be from different locations. This is not like an internal thing. It's not like they're from New Zealand as well. They seem to be all around the world. And she seems to take pleasure in this. I mean, what a scumbag. Um, but anyway, it got me thinking about a wider issue here. A lot of people would respond to something like this and say, oh, well, they should be thicker skinned, they shouldn't be so easily led, they shouldn't be so manipulated. To me, that's pure victim blaming. I mean, if you had a man who was being manipulative to young women, um, everyone would be calling for his head. So why should a female get a free pass? That's the first question. Secondly, or the first point. Secondly, I think there's an issue here which is cannot be overlooked, and that is that very often this whole attitude about treating men in this way, some of the worst offenders are other men. I mean, when you get guys talking about oh they're beta males or cuckolds, um, there's a real stigma in Western societies about, and it probably goes beyond that, but it's particularly obvious in Western society. For example, and I've mentioned this issue before about virginity, and it's leveled at young people in general, but particularly men. That is to say, if you have reached a certain age and you're still a virgin, that's a social stigma. Like say you're 29, 30, 35, and you're a virgin. It's a butt of jokes, isn't it? I mean, look at that film, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Steve Carell. I think it was Steve Carell, yeah. I think that it just it creates this dynamic whereby you need to meet certain conformities, and if you don't, then you're a loser. And we wonder why young men take their own lives. In this country, it's a leading cause of death for young men. Um, this is something I have a lot of empathy with. I mean, guys in that position, because although that's not my situation now, I've had three girlfriends, so I've had romantic experiences. Not for a while, but I don't, at this point, it's not a priority for me. I have other things to focus on. It's not like, oh, I need a girlfriend right now. I do understand the loneliness and even the mental anguish that comes with that. And it frankly disgusts me the lack of empathy and the callousness that some people show. That they seem to think it's okay to jeer and laugh at people who have a lack of experience. Now, obviously, if a guy is then morphing into misogynistic tendencies, like blaming women for being single or something, then right, that can be critiqued. There was that incident 2 years ago in Toronto where the guy basically went on a rampage, and unfortunately, that kind of became because he was supposedly an incel, and there was a whole dynamic around that. Then it led to yet more abuse of men in that position, like they're all woman-hating losers because of his extreme actions, which can never be condoned. You know, he took 10 lives. He's an extremist, and he should never be released from prison. But the fact of the matter is, you get this in this male clique, straight guys in a social circle. The thing is that who can drink the most, who can pull the most girls, and the guy that doesn't is the loser. Or, what I would say this, if you have mates, if you are in this situation, you haven't had the experience, and you have so-called mates that are constantly taking the piss out of you. They're constantly saying you're a virgin, and making jokes out of that. And you're maybe outwardly smiling about it. You could do with new friends. Just drop those guys if you can, because they're not respecting you. They don't deserve your time. Find real friends, because friends wouldn't do that shit to one another. A true friend would try and build up your confidence if that's an issue. If you're struggling with confidence issues, they wouldn't take the piss out of you in public. And it angers me that sometimes this is dismissed as banter. It's not banter if someone is, suffering, if they are becoming the focus of abuse. And the fact of the matter is, you do get this in certain male circles. I don't use the term toxic masculinity because I think it's misplaced, but there is a certain attitude. I mean, it's kind of the male equivalent if you get like the whole phenomenon of mean girls, right? So the popular girls giving a hard time to the girl who's perceived to not be cool or trendy or whatever. The male equivalent of this is the whole thing around sexual experience. And women get that as well, but this is definitely, so if a guy's in his late 20s, 30s, 40s, and he hasn't had that experience, he's basically dismissed as a loser. Oh, there must be something wrong with him. And it doesn't occur to people that maybe it's confidence issues, maybe he just hasn't had the opportunities. Because not everyone can go up to the girl in the bar and, well, things happen like that. And for me, it was late. And I'm totally 100% okay with saying this. No one can hurt me over this now, because it's I know the situation of my own. um I'll admit, I mean, there would have been a time, certainly in university and when I was in my early 20s, it was hell. It really was, because I got on well with women, and I don't think I particularly had confidence issues, but I just wasn't getting the experience. And the bottom line is I felt desperately lonely. And that sort of loneliness can be horrendous. It really can. So when I see people trying to run people down, I think it's utterly disgusting. Utterly disgusting. Um, that's why you get in certain right-wing circles, there's a tendency to talk about getting male cuckolds and so on. Well, I never use that sort of language. I don't like white knighting. I mean, I don't like those guys who go out of their way to pander to feminists and who want to constantly shame their fellow men in a different way. You get the guys who take the piss, but you also get the guys who try to virtue signal by shaming their fellow men. They're just as bad. And then there's other people who just want to get on with their lives. What I would say to if you're watching this video and you're in this situation, I totally understand. And everyone's different, so I can't give advice, and I don't want to do that. But whatever it is makes you happy, just build on that. So if you're into computer games, if you're into a particular endeavor, whatever it is, just build on that. And what you might find is over time your confidence will grow. Um, I mean, one of my girlfriends came from circumstances I just wasn't expecting. I met her at a party, but this wasn't like I was going to parties all the time. Far from it. It was just this one particular party that I went to, and I met her there, and we just clicked, and it just seemed to fit. And I'm so, so grateful. I mean, I desperately miss her sometimes. Um, Not desperately, but yeah, I miss her. But I'm grateful for the experience. Like I say though, for me right now, I'm not like dying to have a girlfriend at this point because I've got other priorities that I want to focus on before focusing on that. But the thing about relationships is you need to, it's very, very difficult when you're lonely because that's the only thing you can focus on. You know, I want this right now. It's totally understandable, but you, you need to respect yourself and try and develop that sort of confidence. And and you need to believe that it could happen for you. I mean, like I said, I was in my late 20s before things really happened. Late 20s. It was a long, long wait. Some people it's longer, and most people it's less. But for me, yeah, it was late 20s. And looking back to think of the wonderful women that I was with, and those relationships didn't last for a range of reasons, but I'm pleased to say there was kind of amicable breaks, just different circumstances. Um, but there was no fiery rows where we broke up. It was, and in fact, I'm still friends with them. So I feel quite fortunate in that sense. I still would have probably in my life have liked more experience, but at this point, I feel like it's less of an issue. Not because I don't want, not because I've went off women. I love women, and it'd be great to have a girlfriend. But it's just less of a focus right now. But what I would say is, so getting back to the girl in that video, she's despicable. And instead of attacking the guys for being weak, which in my view is victim blaming, I mean, she is quite pretty. She's quite outwardly attractive. So it's easy to see where the manipulation can lie. I think it's disgusting what she's doing. New Zealand's not a very big country, so I think the authorities should act. Um, this isn't a free speech issue. This is going well beyond just someone making a controversial opinion. This is someone who's going out of the way. She is boasting about destroying people. She's potentially dangerous. She sounds like a psychopath to me. So I think that the authorities need to find out who she is, and there must be something that they can get her on, harassment or something, because you know guys are going to take their lives over her, and it's no joke. So if you're the sort of guy that is constantly talking about beta males, cuckolds, and so on, uh, you are you're a piece of shit, in my opinion. And it's funny because no one can get to me now. I've had this sometimes on videos where Nathan, you're this, it's etc. etc. Well, quite frankly, I don't want to be one of those guys that's constantly sleeping around either. I don't see what satisfaction you get from that, not building that connection with a woman the way I have. It's just, I think that would be really, that's pathetic, not to mention reckless. Womanizing sounds satisfying on the surface, but I don't think it would be, not in the long run. Plus, the fact there's nothing honourable, there's nothing you should boast about playing emotional games with women. That's not cool. Um, so yeah, basically, I just would like to see. We talk about, and I have to say, some MRAs are guilty of this. They denounce feminists and they denounce. So why don't we talk about male suicide? But I would like to see them actually denouncing other men for this sort of language, like insulting and talking down about guys that are virgins, to put it bluntly. As for what happened in Toronto, and there was also a shooting in, I think it was San Isidro shooting in the United States, which were both said to be driven by misogynistic tendencies. those sort of social forums that may be breeding that are dangerous. No guy can blame women for being rejected. Women don't have an obligation to accept you. However, it still poses the question and poses the issue that if people can be pushed over the edge. So you may be taking the piss out of your friend, so-called friend. You may be constantly making those virginity jokes. You don't know that you could be making that person snap because they're a human being. And the thing is, the sort of guys that do this, they would fall like shit if they were in that position. So actually, the guys that are putting up with it, I don't think they should put up with it, but they are stronger in a sense than the ones who are doing it, because the ones who are doing it are demonstrating their insecurity by the fact they feel the need to do that. It sounds like a cliche, but it's true. So I hope people take away something from this. To my fellow men, just don't be dicks. Don't treat people like that. If it's different if a guy is obnoxious in his personality and he's misogynistic or something like that. But if you have a guy in your social circle and maybe he's not so lucky with the ladies, maybe he's having some issues, be a friend. Don't be a dick. I mean, I just don't understand that. Um, and if it's your opinion, if you're a woman and you think guys like this are losers, it could be because you've had a bad experience. I don't know, but try. I think people need to have some empathy. Try putting yourselves in the shoes of someone who is going through that sort of loneliness. And I'm not making any excuses for misogyny, but it disgusts me that people think it's okay to bully in this way. And as for this scumbag, this poison ivy, she needs to be stopped because the damage that she's doing is profound. And this isn't, there was loads of screenshots of guys breaking down, literally. Now, you could say they shouldn't be so weak. To me, that sounds like victim blaming. Manipulative people can do, it's almost like a form of brainwashing. It's scary. Um, I hope some girls actually round on her, tell her make her know what it feels like. Would be, well, I'm not one to promote vigilantism, but she needs to be stopped. This was 3 years ago, so I don't know if she's still operating out there, but there's a few videos covering this. Anyway, I've thrown out a few things there to think about. If you're a guy or even if you're a girl in this position, don't feel absolute despair. The situation that you're in now, it can be very, very hard to believe that there is a better tomorrow. But I believe me, at university I was utterly miserable at times, and I thought this is never going to change. And yet it did. Things came. And from looking back, I just can't believe that that happened to me. These, the women that I was with were wonderful women, and that's experiences I had. And I would never have imagined that that would happen. I mean, I'm no Hollywood star, I'm pretty average looking at best. I'm average height, I don't think I'm a particularly good looking guy. I'm quite confident. I don't mean like, oh, I'm a ladies' man, but I'm just confident in of myself, pretty much. So there's a lot of things that people need to consider for developing themselves. You need to just focus on what makes you happy and not think that it's never going to happen because it may well come when you least expect it. And I just wish you all well.